Canada is standing at one of the most important crossroads in its modern military history. For years, debates, delays, and political battles have surrounded the question of Canada's next-generation fighter jet. But now, the scenario everyone has been quietly discussing is suddenly very real. What if Canada actually chooses 88 Saab Gripen E fighters? What happens next is far bigger than just a simple aircraft purchase. This decision would reshape Canada's defense strategy, its aerospace industry, its relationship with NATO, and even its diplomatic position between the United States and Europe. The moment Canada announces the selection of 88 Gripens, everything moves fast. Saab activates a full industrial partnership plan, unlike anything Canada has seen before. Instead of just buying jets, Canada gets technology transfer, data rights, and full control over maintenance and upgrades. This is a massive contrast to aircraft like the F-35, where the manufacturer controls most of the software, parts, and upgrades. With the Gripen E, Canada becomes not just a user, but a co-developer. Swedish engineers, Canadian industry leaders, and aerospace companies across the country begin forming a new production and maintenance ecosystem. This immediately injects billions into the Canadian economy and creates thousands of high-tech jobs. Meanwhile, the Royal Canadian Air Force begins preparing for a completely different type of operational environment. The Gripen's design philosophy, low cost, high survivability, easy maintenance, fits Canada's huge geography better than almost any other jet. The aircraft knows that the Gripen can take off from short, icy runways and operate from remote bases with minimal equipment. This means Canada can finally expand its northern readiness, allowing rapid response across the Arctic at a level the country has never had before. With tensions rising in the polar region and Russia actively asserting influence, this capability becomes immediately valuable. As soon as the deal is signed, Canadian pilots travel to Sweden to begin conversion training. Here, they discover something surprising. The Gripen's cockpit philosophy is built around minimal pilot workload. Instead of overwhelming the pilot with dozens of separate inputs, the Gripen's fusion system simplifies everything. Targeting, threat detection, and weapon selection are all streamlined. Pilots consistently report that the Gripen feels smarter, not just faster or more agile. This dramatically reduces training time while increasing combat effectiveness. But what happens next is even more transformative. Canada gains access to the Meteor Beyond Visual Range missile, currently one of the world's most lethal air-to-air weapons. Combined with the Gripen E's advanced radar and electronic warfare suite, this instantly positions Canada as one of the top air combat forces in the Western Hemisphere. Countries across NATO take notice. Suddenly, Canada is not merely participating in NATO operations, it becomes a leader in air defense strategy. However, this decision doesn't just affect Canada and Sweden. Washington reacts quietly, but significantly. The United States has long assumed Canada would select the F-35, keeping North America fully integrated under a single fighter ecosystem. A Gripen purchase disrupts that expectation. But because the Gripen is fully compatible with NATO weapons, data networks, and communication systems, Canada maintains alignment without becoming dependent on US software controls. Privately, some American defense officials admire the move because it pushes competition, innovation, and better pricing. Economically, the real shockwave hits when Saab confirms that Canada will receive full intellectual property access, allowing Canadian firms to build, repair, and upgrade critical components domestically. No long waits, no overseas authorization, and no black box restrictions. This immediately positions Canada as the Gripen hub for the entire region, opening doors for exports, maintenance contracts, and long-term partnerships. What happens next is just the beginning. Because the Gripen deal doesn't stop at jets, it transforms Canada's entire defense posture, and the world is watching. As Canada settles into the reality of selecting 88 Gripen E fighters, the next major shift happens within its own aerospace sector. Companies like Bombardier, CAE, and dozens of mid-sized aviation firms begin receiving proposals from Saab for local production, software integration, component manufacturing, and long-term sustainment plans. This is not a simple assembly work package. This is full participation in the Gripen global ecosystem. For the first time in decades, Canadian aerospace workers experienced the kind of industrial independence once dreamed of during the Avro-Aero era. One of the earliest developments is the establishment of a Canadian Gripen Support and Development Center. This facility becomes the heart of Canada's fighter jet ecosystem. Engineers start working on mission software, sensor upgrades, and electronic warfare enhancements that can be modified without foreign approval. Canadian technicians undergo specialized training on the aircraft's modular systems, learning to perform complete overhauls, engine swaps, and avionics updates using locally supplied parts. The entire objective is simple: make Canada self-sufficient. The Royal Canadian Air Force begins to restructure its basing strategy. Gripens are deployed to key northern locations such as Inuvik and Rankin Inlet, enabling rapid interception over the Arctic. Unlike previous fighter fleets that required large ground crews and heavy equipment, the Gripen's unique turnaround philosophy allows small teams to refuel, rearm, and relaunch the jet in minutes. This dramatically increases Canada's readiness and response reach. Suddenly, the RCAF can maintain persistent air coverage over icebound regions with far less logistical pressure. At the same time, joint training exercises with Sweden intensify. Swedish Air Force pilots share decades of experience flying Gripens in harsh winter conditions, exactly the type of environment Canada faces. These exercises reveal one of the Gripen's greatest strengths: its unrivaled electronic warfare suite. Canadian pilots quickly learn how the jet can jam radar systems, spoof enemy sensors, and operate in fully contested environments without sacrificing stealth or speed. This capability becomes central to Canada's role in future NATO air defense missions. Meanwhile, the political impact is immediate. European defense analysts view Canada's Gripen decision as a major win for transatlantic cooperation outside U.S. defense giants. Swedish officials emphasize that this partnership elevates Sweden's strategic importance in North America while giving Canada a more flexible military identity. Ottawa leverages this momentum to renegotiate technology agreements and strengthen alliances with Nordic and Baltic nations, who see Canada as a long-term partner in Arctic security. Economically, the ripple effects are enormous. As Canadian suppliers begin producing Gripen components, the domestic market expands. Canadian-made avionics modules, composite parts, and mission software packages become exportable to other Gripen operating nations such as Brazil, Czech Republic, South Africa, and Hungary. Suddenly, Canada finds itself at the center of a growing global fighter jet support chain. The government begins exploring future co-development opportunities with Sweden, potentially including UAVs, next-gen radar systems, and even participation in the next European fighter program. Perhaps the most unexpected change comes in the realm of pilot culture. Young RCAF pilots who grew up hearing about the dominance of American fighters discovered that the Gripen offers something different, a perfect balance of agility, intelligence, and pilot-friendly design. The feedback is overwhelmingly positive. Pilots report feeling more in control, more aware of the battle space, and less overwhelmed during high-stress missions. The Gripen's advanced data fusion and sensor sharing capabilities mean Canadian pilots can coordinate with NATO allies more seamlessly than ever. But the real turning point comes when Canada begins testing its first Meteor-equipped Gripen squadron. The results stun observers. For the first time, Canada has an air-to-air missile that outclasses nearly every threat in the Western Hemisphere. With the combination of Gripen's top-tier radar, long-range detection, and the Meteor's no-escape zone, Canada becomes capable of dominating airspace long before an enemy aircraft can engage. This shift forces military planners across North America to rethink air defense doctrines entirely. And yet, all of this is still only the foundation. What happens next will reshape Canada's global role even further. As the first Meteor-armed Gripen squadron stand up, Canada experiences a dramatic rise in its geopolitical value. NATO begins restructuring multiple air defense plans to incorporate Canada's new long-range interception capabilities. Suddenly, Canada is not just protecting its own skies. It becomes a major contributor to NATO's collective air shield. With Arctic air routes becoming more strategically important, Canada's Gripen fleet is expected to play a central role in monitoring and securing the northern approach against Russian activity. This reshaping of Canada's defense posture leads to an uptick in joint operations. Swedish, Norwegian, Finnish, and Canadian forces begin training together in harsh winter exercises. These exercises are designed to simulate high-threat Arctic engagements, precisely the environment where the Gripen excels. The aircraft's ability to use short runways, icy surfaces, and makeshift deployments gives Canada a unique operational advantage. Analysts note that with minimal ground support, Canadian Gripens can generate rapid sorties where other aircraft would struggle. On the home front, the Canadian aerospace industry experiences a renaissance. Saab fulfills its promise of deep industrial participation by transferring design rights, manufacturing processes, and avionics integration technology. This leads to a new generation of Canadian engineers specializing in electronic warfare systems, advanced composite structures, and mission-critical software. For the first time since the Avro Arrow, Canada has the capability to upgrade, modify, and innovate its own fighter systems without foreign oversight. As production ramps up, Canada becomes a key supplier of Gripen components for global customers. Canadian-made modules begin appearing in Brazilian Gripen F variants, Czech modernized Gripens, and potential future operators in the Middle East and Asia. Canadian factories operate at full capacity, while subcontractors expand operations to meet demand. This industrial growth spreads across Quebec, Ontario, Manitoba, and British Columbia, creating thousands of high-skill, long-term jobs. Diplomatically, Canada's decision to choose Gripen sends a message. It is committed to sovereignty and independence in defense decisions. Unlike aircraft controlled by restrictive foreign software locks, the Gripen allows Canada full access to mission systems. This autonomy becomes a cornerstone of Canada's foreign policy narrative. Allies admire the move, and several NATO partners begin studying Canada's procurement strategy as a model for future fighter purchases. But not everyone is thrilled. Behind closed doors, some U.S. defense contractors express concern that Canada's Gripen deal could inspire other countries to move away from American fighters. However, policy experts in Washington recognize that Canada remains deeply integrated within NORAD and that the Gripen, being fully NATO-compatible, poses no operational risk. Instead, Canada's independence is viewed as strengthening the alliance by diversifying its technological base. Operational testing reveals more surprises. In simulated Arctic engagements, Gripen's advanced electronic warfare suite performs beyond expectations. The jet is able to blind hostile radars, mask friendly signatures, and manipulate electromagnetic environments. Canadian pilots discover that in many scenarios, the Gripen doesn't need stealth coating to disappear. It simply overwhelms enemy sensors electronically. This revelation changes how Canadian commanders view future air combat. Electronic dominance becomes as important as speed or stealth. Meanwhile, Gripen's low operating cost enables the RCF to fly significantly more training hours. Unlike high-cost stealth jets that require careful budget allocation, the Gripen's affordability means pilots spend more time in the air and less time waiting for maintenance cycles. This results in a far more experienced pilot force, one capable of performing complex missions with high confidence. Canada's decision also prompts new discussions within the government about expanding northern infrastructure. With the Gripen's ability to operate from remote and rugged environments, several Arctic bases are evaluated for upgrades, with the goal of establishing year-round quick reaction alert capabilities. This marks a major shift in Canada's approach to defending its vast northern territories. And while the Gripen deal is already considered historic, what comes next pushes Canada into an entirely new era of defense innovation and global influence. As Canada's Arctic infrastructure upgrades begin, something unprecedented happens. For the first time in decades, Canada possesses an air force that can be rapidly deployed, widely dispersed, and fully independent of foreign maintenance pipelines. With Gripen E's compact support footprint, the RCAF can position multiple jets across remote northern locations, creating a distributed air defense network. This dramatically increases Canada's deterrence power. Any hostile aircraft approaching Canadian or shared Arctic airspace now risks being intercepted long before reaching sensitive regions. This shift leads to a re-evaluation of Canada's NORAD contribution. American generals quickly noticed that the Gripen's long-range sensors and electronic warfare capabilities can fill critical gaps in continental defense. Combined with the powerful Meteor missile, Canada's upgraded northern posture reduces response times and expands detection coverage over the polar region. Behind the scenes, joint US-Canadian working groups begin testing deeper integration between Gripen E systems and NORAD command networks. The early results are very promising. Gripen's data link, fusion algorithms, and multi-domain integration enhance situational awareness for both nations. Meanwhile, Saab's long-term investment in Canadian industry brings another breakthrough: the establishment of a Canadian Gripen Software Excellence Center. This facility becomes responsible for mission data updates, electronic warfare libraries, and AI-assisted threat analysis systems. For the first time, Canada controls how its fighter jets interpret, analyze, and react to emerging threats. This level of data sovereignty becomes a strategic asset, especially as more countries confront cyber and electronic warfare challenges. With Canada now co-managing Gripen software evolution, a new generation of Canadian engineers emerges, experts in mission systems, radar optimization, and artificial intelligence. These specialists gradually expand into civilian aerospace applications, boosting Canada's technological competitiveness. Universities across the country introduce new aerospace programs supported by Saab, creating a long-term talent pipeline for the country's defense and aviation sectors. The RCAF's Gripen training pipeline also transforms. Pilots train not only in Sweden, but within Canadian-built simulators, enhanced with advanced threat modeling and Arctic combat scenarios. The Gripen's intuitive cockpit design allows pilots to operate advanced systems with reduced mental load, leading to faster reaction times and improved mission performance. Younger pilots especially appreciate Gripen's smart fighter philosophy, where automation, data processing, and real-time decision support work seamlessly. But Canada's role in international security grows beyond North America. With Gripen's ability to carry NATO standard weapons, Canada begins participating in more global air policing missions. European nations, especially in the Baltic region, welcome Canada's Gripen deployment during joint exercises. Canadian pilots become known for their expertise in operating in harsh conditions and adapting quickly to different air theaters. Soon, Canada starts receiving invites for deeper cooperation, joint electronic warfare development, Arctic surveillance projects, and multinational Gripen upgrade programs. Sweden and Brazil propose a trilateral initiative that would allow all three countries to share the costs and benefits of developing next-generation avionics and weapons integrations. This turns Canada into an active contributor to future fighter innovation, not just a buyer. Back home, public opinion shifts. Canadians become increasingly aware that the Gripen deal is not merely a military purchase, but a boost to national pride and industrial resurgence. Media outlets compare it to the legacy of the Avro Aero, highlighting how the country is reclaiming its aerospace identity. Economic reports show rising job numbers and major gains for manufacturing sectors tied to Gripen supply chains. Yet the most significant milestone comes when Canada's first fully domestically upgraded Gripen E, software, sensors, and mission data successfully completes its initial flight. This achievement signals a new phase. Canada now possesses the ability to evolve its fighter fleet independently, without waiting for foreign approval cycles. Military analysts call it a sovereign combat capability, rarely seen outside major powers. All of these developments point to one undeniable truth. Choosing 88 Gripens was not just a procurement decision, it was a strategic transformation. But the story doesn't end here, because the next phase will push Canada into an entirely new level of global influence and defense autonomy.